Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Lads. We're here today to do our first predictions and speculation for The Bad Batch Season 3. We're going to give you everything we think might happen in the fourth episode of the show, considering the first three came out already last week for a big premiere. If you want to check out our thoughts, we're currently doing live streams the kind of same day into the next day after they drop, since they come out at midnight now. Ahsoka, was nice 6 p.m. release. Now it's a midnight release for the Bad Batch. So we're doing it around 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific that day, like right after it comes out. It's always tricky describing midnight for people. Some people think it's one day, some people think it's the next day. But anyways, Wednesdays at 6 to 7 p.m. we will be covering Bad Batch Live. Join us there. You can ask us your questions. You can talk and give your predictions. That's kind of where we start theorizing already, as well as giving you our thoughts on the latest episode. So make sure you join us there every single week. As for this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you're interested in the Bad Batch coverage, we will be covering every single episode this way in the lives, as well as giving you these predictions every single week for what we think will happen every time there's a new episode or double episode, triple episode, whatever it is. We're going to cover all of it and give you our thoughts on what we think will be coming the following week. Comment below, let us know your thoughts, though. We love to discuss your predictions in the comments as well. All right, let's get into our thoughts here. We're going to start with the first three episodes presented two plot lines thus far. There's Hunter and Wrecker trying to find Omega, and then there's Omega and Crosshair, who have now escaped Tantus, which was much faster than I think we all thought would happen, even though I believe somebody calculated it was like 125 days or so Omega was there. It did happen fast, but it was only 3 episodes and they all came out on the same day and they're already gone. So what's going to happen with that storyline? We know the bounty hunters are out there. There's a lot to discuss in that realm, but we're going to start with Hunter and Wrecker, considering the first 3 episodes alternated main characters each episode. The fourth episode seems like it would be a Hunter and Wrecker episode. So, Nick, what do you think is going to happen in the next episode if Hunter and Wrecker are the main characters?
I mean, if they are the leads, I would assume that there's a chance that they connect with Rex and Echo. They were pretty heavily featured in the trailer. And now that they have like a general idea of the sector that Omega and Crosshair are in, like where they could be, obviously they're not aware of the escape quite yet, but I'd assume once they do a little bit of probing, get a little bit of intel from Echo and Rex's clones, they can get the idea of like, oh man, like this is a quickly evolving situation. Let's make the most of our resources and let's get going and capture Omega and Crosshair mid-flight and get them to a place of safety. We could definitely start the episode as well with them dropping off Mox and the other clone cadets. I think it would be a nice way to reestablish Fee as a character, especially since she's also been in the trailer and we've seen them with the big AT. I don't remember the designation, but the big turbo rumbler thing with the big wheels, the metal wheels, whatever AT something, right? So she's going to play a role. And we know that there have been people who've gotten like a good amount of episodes, not as much as last season. And it seems like a lot of the storytelling is very serialized from their thoughts. So I would only assume that we're really directly picking up their threads, closing out whatever needs to be done, and then maybe even converging very quickly and introducing obviously the groups that are going to be relevant and have been relevant so far in the show. So I would assume that's the direction there. As far as them, like really meeting up in this episode, I don't know that. I think it's more interesting to see the passage of time for Wrecker and Hunter. Like we've gotten like a little bit of a hints there, like with Hunter kind of being a little wary eyed and like holding the bridge of his nose, and in the foreground we see Tech's glasses, and Mox and the other clone cadets get to see the doll, and they're like, okay, this was like a family unit and all that. But what has this family unit, the remnants of it, been doing in these 125, 150 so days, right? How much has developed outside of them? Have they been, pushed more by Echo and Rex to like join up forces, or are they kind of like lone wolfing it right now because they don't really want to get caught up in something too big until necessary? I think it'll be really interesting to see a little bit more of what the passage of time was like for them. Not necessarily told in flashbacks, but at least through character dynamics with the groups that they're going to reintroduce. So I think that'd be kind of the direction where this episode is going to go for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. The passage of time is important, especially if, from episode 1 to episode 3, there was 125 days or something like that passed for Omega and Crosshair. It seems like episode 2 kind of catches up to episode 3 in the timeline, where we don't have a definitive answer on how much time has passed, but Hunter is like, oh, she's been gone a long time. Every time it comes up, he's just been, they ask, oh, how long has she been gone? Too long. That's his responses. So, like, there's no definitiveness, but it seems like episode 1 takes place pretty much towards the end of where season 2 ended, and then episode 2 takes place the 125 days after into where episode 3 starts as well. So we could see that passage of time. I think Hunter and Wrecker's desperation is definitely going to be a big key to this. I mean, adding 3 young clones already in that second episode, I think gives you a pretty big clue to where their story is going. Like you mentioned, Rex and Echo, I pretty much feel like we're going to get them in this episode in some form, whether it's a hologram, whether it's just a meetup and they pick up the kids type of thing. There's something that's going to be establishing that brotherhood here. I think there's a big theme in this season about brotherhood, what it means to be a clone. As we see in Tantus already, we have Amiri Carr versus Omega, that dynamic of like what's an adult female clone who's been handled basically this entire time by Dr. Hemlock, taught that way. That's basically her father figure versus Nala Se being Omega's mother figure. There's like a dynamic there of brotherhood and cloning, and that's like something that's been there since the first season, first episode, something that's always been a major part of the Bad Batch's storyline because they're different. They're loners because they're mutants and the rest of the regs aren't. So I think this episode in particular is going to be something that kind of unifies the two groups. Get to see Echo and Rex help them find their way. I think there's a sense of desperation for Hunter at this point. He needs to find Omega. It's something that really is heavy on him. I don't think we do see that reunion in this episode. If we do, I feel like it is a missed opportunity to at least drag it out a bit. A lot of these shows, like Grogu and The Mandalorian before it, it kind of uses real world passage of time to try to make us think, oh, they've been gone separated for a while. But people are a little smarter than that. In plot, like it feels like it just happened. And so if you blew it with Grogu and Din Djarin and just brought him back in a show that wasn't even theirs, please don't do that with Omega and Hunter. Like, well, let's see some actual development for these other relationships. And I think that desperate element of Hunter, who's always so in control, I would very much like to see that play out in this episode. But let's talk about Omega and Crosshair. We did a little bit in that section as well. They have a plot that seems to be really hell bent on trying to redeem Crosshair. It seems like this is a redeem Crosshair saga in this first half of the season. It's going to all be about how Omega can bring out the best in him. Meanwhile, we have Dr. Hemlock, who has now discovered that Nala Se has been hiding these samples and that Omega's blood does mix well with the M count of the blood they're testing. Whoever's blood that is, we think it probably has something to do with Palpatine or some type of Force sensitive. But Project Necromancer is well on its way. Nala Se is in trouble. Omega's in trouble. Bounty hunters are out there. So, what do you think if we get Crosshair and Omega this next episode? What do you think the plot focuses on specifically for their story?
Well, to me, it'd be interesting if there's sort of adrift, right, where they can't be so easily picked up, and that's what creates that tension between Hunter, Wrecker, and the expanding clone story, the clone brotherhood, as we mentioned, versus now Hemlock's reprioritization, his big emphasis on saying, okay, I have the full disposal of the empire to really, accomplish everything I want to do, and in this case, immediately correct and refocus my efforts around this little girl that I've just let walk around for so long when she's, if anything, the most vital part of the entire work that I'm doing here, right? So that tension naturally makes it so that both those groups are trying to grab onto Omega and Crosshair. But we also know like they were taking a shuttle that was like a supply run shuttle, and it's clearly been a little bit damaged. So for them to make it to wherever they're trying to go right away, I don't know. I don't think that would work. I think that would lose any sort of tension that has been built up on their escape. It'd be great if they do the sort of thing that they did in season one when we had Fennec and Cad Bane and they're on that random planet where we saw like the previous Kaminoan experimentation and all that. I'd love to see if this Tantus sector, this Wayland sector, has become, a little bit more of not just on this planet, but we've done some things in the system. We have other Imperial facilities, other, not so easily spoken things that Omega and Crosshair can stumble upon. I think that'd be a great way for them to like really discuss a little bit more what makes Omega unique. Because at this point, it's not that she's just like a pure, unaltered clone, right? Something about her becoming a female clone when we've had only Django male specimens for an entire army, something about the M count, something about what Nala Se has done with her, or been able to manipulate around her. That really seems like it has a great chance of being explored here. And I just love for their storyline to really poke at a little bit more at what Crosshair has gone through, right? He has like the shivering fingers and hands. He's clearly dealing through some PTSD from his experiences in season two, but also whatever experimentation that he's going through on Tantus or went through, and then we see a CX clone there. Like there's a lot of dark and mysterious things, and I'd love for them in this kind of like journey to eventual freedom stumble upon a little bit more of the dark sciences and the stuff that the other Imperials would not take too well to seeing, and at the same time also dig in a little bit more into that relationship because hey, Crosshair really picked up on like that older brother like role, even though he's so resistant to it, right? Omega wore him down, and I think to some degree, if this was the same Crosshair of last season, it wouldn't have worked in that same way. But because of whatever trauma and whatever bonding that he went through in season two, whatever realizations that he had about the Empire, I don't know. I feel like he was already going to start slipping towards how more of who he was in the Bad Batch and understand things that he didn't know about himself and the value of his life. I'd love to see that continue to be explored here. I, I'd love for this dynamic to become like the rebirth of the Bad Batch. I don't think Wrecker and Hunter are necessarily running through what it feels like to be Bad Batch members, right? For them, in their mind, they feel like they're a broken family. They've lost everyone. They've seen Tech die. Omega and Crosshair, Omega being the youngest member at one point, and then bringing back an original member, and maybe having a little bit more of like the classic Bad Batch vibes, the feels that they had. I think that'd be pretty interesting too, because at the end of the day, it'd be great to have another like A team esque dynamic with this group instead of just feeling like everything's going wrong. They're lonely outsiders. Nobody understands them. I'd like them to be a little bit more crazy, chaotic again, but also start to become a little bit more of the symbols that they are to other clones, from outsiders to really what it means to be a clone individual in the galaxy and the Empire, like the independent, free thinking people that they supposedly are, right? So I'd love for that dynamic to start being fostered a little bit because I feel like that builds off of a lot of what Omega was able to do with Tech and what she was able to do with Echo, and especially through Hunter in season one. She's able to make these guys think about who they are, redefine who they are, and in doing so, these characters become more and more important to their fellow brothers. So yeah, get a little bit of the dark science and crazy stuff, but also get a little bit more of that season two stuff that worked really well, and then channel it together.
Yeah, I don't really see Omega and Crosshair being in this episode, and if they are, I think it is a small role. But those are all fascinating ideas, and I really think this next episode or the next episode that's about them will really try to hit that difference in philosophy. Like I said earlier, I think this is a Crosshair redemption first half of the season. I think it really is about Omega's optimism versus Crosshair's pessimism. They're going to throw them in situations and where they're going to have to work together. Both are going to rub off on each other. Omega might become a bit more worldly. Crosshair might remember what it's like to have a brother or a sister who has your back and always knows what you're going through, type of thing. I think Crosshair is really going to be examined. And personally, I also can't wait to see Crosshair and Hunter back together. See that real relationship start to crystallize. Because I do think that is a big point of this season, is trying to redeem Crosshair, not just through his actions, but also with his brothers. A new revelation from his brothers about how to think about him, how to trust him again. That's going to be something that is earned, and just like it's earned with the characters, it has to be earned with us as the audience, who he's been a villain for 1.5 seasons. We saw it a little bit at the end of last season, and they were great episodes, heartbreaking episodes, but really not that much time. So I'd love to see more of him doing things that remind us of the old Crosshair, so we learn to retrust him. If it is a Crosshair Omega plot, I do think most of it would center around their ship being damaged. They might have to dock somewhere, some shady, seedy place, runs into bounty hunters, or they get into trouble they have to get out of. Maybe they need money. This is not Sid, but maybe Omega it's kind of a reverse role where like the kid knows how to deal with the underworld people and is getting them money. She's like taking charge. She's like, I'm going to get us money and food. Crosshair's never been out on his own. He's always been with either the Bad Batch and the Republic or the Empire. So he doesn't have to fend for himself. We'll get to see that happen here. It'll be interesting to see how they bring in the rest of the galaxy into Crosshair's perspective, because he hasn't really experienced that. He's always been sheltered into a good soldiers follow orders. What does it mean to be a good soldier? What does it mean to be idealistically Empire or Republic? All those things that the Bad Batch had to go through in the first season, Crosshair didn't. So we'll start to see that start to unfold in Crosshair as well. It'll be part of his redemption arc, is having him figure out, okay, how do I get on that level that the Bad Batch are now on, where we see the Bad Batch, what's left of them, Hunter and Wrecker, in the episode 2 of season 3, doing a deal by bringing somebody in and trading them as a bounty for information about Omega. Like, that's who they are now. They've learned to survive and do things like that. Where Crosshair might be ruthless enough to do something like that, but he might not actually be able to, get those connections, figure out how the underworld works. It's going to be interesting to see what the future of the clones is, because if it is a lot steeped in underworld stuff, I mean, it would be nice to see Crosshair get some time here. I mean, I don't know how much Crosshair is for this world. I still think he could die at the end of the season if there is a Bad Batch member who dies. I do think it's him, but it would be nice to start him down that process. And if we do, I think that's kind of a giveaway, because last season we've spent so much time with Tech, then they kill him. If we spend a lot of time with Crosshair in this season, because we barely got any last season, I think it's a bit of a giveaway that he might actually die. But let us know what your thoughts are about episode 4 of the Bad Batch season 3 in the comments. What do you think is going to happen? Again, make sure you join us every week, every Wednesday, 6 or 7 p.m. We'll let you know in the community. Make sure you check that out. We will be going live, answering all your questions, giving you our thoughts on the latest episode, as well as doing reaction shorts. If you're interested in YouTube Shorts, we'll have reaction shorts up immediately at like 12:30 in the morning Pacific, right after the episodes come out. Stay tuned for more videos coming on the channel as well. Make sure you're subscribed for all that great content. If you'd like to support the channel financially, you can check out our Patreon and YouTube memberships as well. For as little as $1 a month, you can get a lot of great extra perks on Star Wars Lads. If you're interested in checking that out and supporting the channel, we greatly appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you all next time.